What's up, buddies? I'm starting a new series where I'm going to recap the Metal Gear games, which the first games released would be Metal Gear in 1987, and then Metal Gear 2 in 1990. However, those two aren't actually the first in the series if you're going in chronological order. That would be Metal Gear Solid 3. So I had to decide, do I start with the PS2 game or the ancient MSX game? I decided to just go in release order, so in this video we'll cover the stories of Metal Gear and Metal Gear 2 Solid Snake. Metal Gear was the first game to be fully directed by Hideo Kojima, who's obviously now a legend in the industry, and I can definitely say this first one was a banger. So Metal Gear gives us absolutely no information or introduction, and we begin with our main character, Solid Snake, swimming into an enemy base and getting a call from his commanding officer, Big Boss. I actually love the naming schemes in these games. I mean, the second one has some great ones. Big Boss says that our operation is to infiltrate the enemy base in a South African country called Outer Heaven. Snake is a rookie in an elite Black Ops unit called Foxhound. Their best agent, Grey Fox, was sent in first to Outer Heaven but was captured. We don't actually really learn any of this in this game, but Outer Heaven was founded by some kind of legendary mercenary who wanted it to be a nation built by soldiers for soldiers, so the population is mostly soldiers and refugees. All that Foxhound managed to get out of Grey Fox before his capture was that Outer Heaven is working on some kind of ultimate weapon called Metal Gear. Snake's goal is to first rescue Grey Fox and then destroy this mysterious weapon. This game takes place in 1995, and Foxhound works for NATO, but we really only find out most of this in later games. Anyway, Foxhound sent Snake in with absolutely nothing. No guns, no knife, and the only way he can take out the many guards is by punching them, which isn't ideal when they have guns. This is a stealth game though, so Snake manages to sneak past the first couple guards and finds keycard number 1 in a truck. Keycard 1 allows him access to a room with a gas mask, and this guard just decides to take a nap standing up. In another truck is a pistol with no ammo and some mines. However, because I suck at the game, I got found here and had to rush to an elevator, which serve as save points and guards can never chase you into them. On the second floor are cameras, which will of course set off the alarm if they see you. The only way to stop a red alert is either to kill a bunch of guards or just run far enough. Anyway, past the cameras and some more guards is some ammo and our first of many prisoners of war the Snake has to rescue. Most of these guys belong to the Resistance in Outer Heaven. We'll chat with some of their members later. The next room is filled with poison gas, but Big Boss only tells you this after you go inside. He says that the Resistance leader, Schneider, can tell you where to find a gas mask, but we already have one. Past the gas room is another POW who tells us that Grey Fox was captured a few days ago. I mean, thanks for the new information, buddy. Past him is a room with this weird rolling pillar trap, which is a strange thing to keep in a random room in your military base, but there's also some C4 in here. In another corridor with some cameras is card number 2. There's going to be a lot of cards in this game. Using card 2 allows Snake to grab some RC missiles from a previous room. Past that is a place on an electrified floor. Big Boss says we can use an RC missile to destroy the panel, and the Schneider can tell us where to get one. Too late against Schneider as we already have those. Past the floor is another POW who gives the frequency for Diane, who's already in the Resistance. He says that she can give us information about Outer Heaven. If we call her right now though, she's not there, so thanks Diane. In a room unlocked with card 2, we find a cardboard box the Snake can hide in. In this game, as long as you're not moving, enemies and cameras won't notice you, and they also don't seem to notice how the box moves to a completely different spot every time they look at it. The box is no help though when Snake gets ambushed by 4 guards in a confined room, but after killing all 4 they drop a silencer, which means we can finally shoot that pistol without causing a red alert. They were guarding a grenade launcher, which we'll need in a minute. After saving another POW, Snake gets into another elevator, except this one can take him to any of the 5 floors of the building. For now we're going to floor number 2. That brings him to this part with weird blue floors and a shitload of guards and cameras. Past them is an area protected by an infrared laser. You can see them if you smoke a couple cigs, because the smoke makes them visible or something, but smoking cigs damages your health, so you can also just cheat using a walkthrough from thesnakesoup.org. We will be back here later, but for now we can save a POW and increase our class rating to 2 stars. And all that means is we have more health and can carry more resources. But for now, let's head to the first floor where we can find another POW, an SMG, and then get cornered and captured by guards. Well shit, Snake, it looks like you failed your first mission. Except Big Boss calls and congratulates Snake for successfully infiltrating, so I guess he meant to do that. They took all his gear, but luckily Snake is a menace and can punch his way through walls, beyond which we find Grey Fox tied up in a room. He tells us what Metal Gear actually is. In his words, it's an all-terrain, nuclear-equipped, walking battle tank, but he says only one person knows how to destroy it. Metal Gear's creator, Dr. Drago Petrovich Madnar. He's also being held somewhere in Outer Heaven, but after freeing Grey Fox, Snake gets ambushed by our real first boss, the Shotmaker. Now, it's pretty easy to call yourself the Shotmaker when you have a shotgun with a wide-ass spread, but Snake has to punch open a door for now to get his gear to actually fight the Shotmaker. Now, you can definitely try to fight him fairly, but I always just hit around a corner and shot RC missiles at him. Killing Shotmaker gives us keycard 3, which reveals that we're in a basement, which is also a weird maze filled with dogs. The walls here can't be punched through, unfortunately, so Snake has to blow them up using C4. At the end of the maze is a bomb suit that we'll need in a minute, and hidden beyond another wall is an enemy uniform that we'll also need. It only actually allows you to disguise yourself in one specific instance, though. We need to go back to floor number 2 where there's another weird death pillar, 3 guards sleeping on the job, and another POW who tells us that in order to get to the inner courtyard we need a parachute from the roof. So we'll obviously need a parachute, but first we can find infrared goggles that remove the need to smoke to see lasers. One nice thing about this game is that when you die enough times in a row, it'll actually give you pity ammo and healing rations. Now after I got the goggles I kept dying, so I had to keep killing myself until they gave me my pity points so I could finally get out of there. But with the goggles and card through, we can go back to the laser room and free another POW, who tells us that Dr. Madnar is being held within the inner courtyard. But before we can get far, Snake gets attacked by another boss. This guy calls himself the Machine Gun Kid. Now most of these bosses are just mercenaries who came to Outer Heaven because they like the vision, so that's why they all have weird names. The best way to beat Machine Gun Kid is to out-machine gun him, and beyond him we find a parachute, so it's time to head to the roof. When we get there, Big Boss says that it's a wind tunnel. In order to move around we need to find a bomb suit, which luckily we just found. The first order of business up here is to rescue another POW who tells us that we can parachute off the other edge of the building to get to the inner courtyard. But after crossing some weird shaking bridges, Snake gets introduced to a super annoying enemy type, Rocket Guards. They don't shoot rockets at you, rather they wear a jetpack and hover in the air spraying you with bullets. And the worst part is that they can follow you inside. But after mowing down a shitload of them, Snake finds a mine detector and makes his way to the parachute point, only to find it blocked off by a helicopter called Hind D. Now in this game it's kind of a weird plane/helicopter hybrid, and maybe due to that it doesn't actually take off, allowing Snake to hide around a corner and spam grenades at it. But after destroying the heliplane, Snake finally finds a nice point to parachute off and lands in the inner courtyard, surrounded by like 4 dogs. Madnar's cell is right there, but Snake has to grab card 4 from a truck surrounded by mines before he can get in. When he does, we find that either that POW lied, or Madnar has been moved as the cell is empty. Another POW nearby says that they just moved Madnar to Building 2, with 10 kilometers of desert separating the 2 buildings. That's just great, buddy, but 10 kilometers is actually pretty short in this game. Though as Snake makes his way through the desert, he starts getting shelled from a tank in the distance. When Snake finally runs into the tank itself, he finds that unlike Hind D, he can't just spam grenades at it. Rather, what you have to do is wait until the tank backs up, run and plant a bunch of mines in front of it, and then retreat and watch the tank drive over them. If you don't have enough mines, then fuck you, man, you better run back to the start of the desert and hop in this truck that takes you back to the inner courtyard to find more. It takes about 12 mines to get the job done, but once the tank has been destroyed, Snake can equip that enemy uniform and arrive at the entrance to Building 2. The guards have just been alerted that Foxhound is trying to infiltrate, so Big Boss tells you to put on that uniform and to switch frequencies to avoid any unwanted listeners. With the uniform on, the guards tell Snake to head on in, and we find that Building 2 has this weird moat going down the middle of it. Swimming through the moat takes Snake into a room where he's immediately cornered by a bulldozer that tries to kill him. If it even touches you, you're dead, so you have to hit it with just enough grenades to kill it before it does. Past it, we can find an elevator that weirdly only goes up. We need to go down, but there's another elevator we can access from the roof. It's much like the other roof in the sense that there's an army of rocket guards on you at all times, but Snake can find card 5 up here and then that second elevator. Now we can go down to the basement, which also has a maze in it, except this one is filled with poison gas. We find another POW down here. Now I don't know how he plans to get out, but there's also a fake version of Dr. Madnar. If you try to save him, the floor opens out from under Snake and kills him. They actually pull this trick again on Snake in the second game, but if you ignore him, you can find card 6 in the next room. Upon exiting the maze, Snake is attacked by the Flame Trooper, who, as you might predict, has a flamethrower. His downfall is that he refuses to move around, so Snake can just hide in a corner and kill him with RC missiles. Then, heading up to the first floor, we can find an antenna for our transmitter. Just when we do, Big Boss says they're jamming our radio, so anytime we want to call someone, we need the transmitter. We find another POW here who says that the waterway can connect us to Building 3, but the water is too deep for Snake to swim in without drowning. So for now, let's head to floor 2, which is infested with guards and has these 2 giant jacked guys guarding 4 separate doors. They were called Arnold in the original release of the game for obvious reasons, but here they're called Bloody Brads. They're actually androids made by Dr. Madnar. That's why rather than triggering a red alert when they see you or attacking, they kinda just run at you until you leave their immediate line of sight, then they immediately forget you're even there. We'll have to deal with the Brads later, but for now we can find another POW who connects us with Jennifer from the Resistance, although he says she's really high class so she'll only talk to other upstanding members of society. What that means is that she won't talk to you if you kill any POWs, but we're good for now so we can call Jennifer, and she says she'll leave a rocket launcher for us in the next room. She's managed to infiltrate Outer Heaven posing as a doctor. Jennifer does leave us a rocket launcher, however she does not leave us any ammo. To get that, Snake first has to dodge one of the Brads to find a room full of ammo for both a pistol and rocket launcher, then pick up an antidote for scorpion venom, and finally after triggering about 40 red alerts, find the real Dr. Madnar. He's a dick though, and he refuses to help us until we go back to Building 1 and save his daughter Ellen, who's also been captured. Now Madnar will actually later tell us how we can kill the Bloody Brads, which is via rocket launcher, but we now have a rocket launcher and ammo, so let's just kill them now. Like I said, they are extremely stupid, so all you have to do is run down, shoot a missile, and run out before Brad catches you. He'll just walk back to his place like nothing happens, so you can do this as many times as you need until both Brads are dead. Killing them causes Brad number 1 to drop card 7, but we'll use that in a minute. For now, we can get Jennifer to open another door for us that unlocks the compass, which we'll need to cross another desert in a minute. Before we can leave, we save another POW who is the one that tells Snake he needs a compass. Well, we better go save the doctor's daughter, but blocking the way though is another rolling pillar and a pitfall trap, which sent me back to my last checkpoint before I had even killed the Brads. We're going to deal with a lot of those as time goes on, but the pillar was guarding an elevator that we can take back to the first floor and grab a flashlight. Back at Building 1, Snake can go back to the place where he was taken after being captured and unlock a new door with card 6. There we find another cell where Snake can hear Ellen calling out from behind a wall. Blowing it up frees her and we can finally go find out how to kill Metal Gear from Madnar. Before that though, there's this insanely annoying section in this underground tunnel where you need to equip the flashlight and then cross 3 consecutive pitfall-filled screens. The worst part is that when you finally get past the 42 previous traps, there's one more to get you right at the exit. But this underground section connects directly to the basement of Building 2, so at least we don't need to go through the desert again. When we get back to Madnar, he first tells us that we can find Metal Gear 20 kilometers north of here in Building 3, 100 floors underground. He then tells us there's only one very specific way to kill Metal Gear, and that is to attach C4 to its lightly armored feet. Okay, no problem, except it only works if you place the bombs in a very specific order. 16 bombs alternating between left and right feet in a very specific way. The only problem is that the senile old man can't remember which foot you need to place the final bomb on. But for now, using card 7 back on the first floor lets Snake enter another desert between Building 2 and 3, except this one is crawling with scorpions. If they sting Snake, you need to use that antidote we grabbed to avoid death, but by using the compass, Snake arrives at Building 3. When he does, he's immediately ambushed by guards. Big Boss calls and says that we can avoid them by getting in the truck on the right. All that does though is take Snake back to the start of Building 1. I mean, what the hell, Big Boss? So let's just ignore that and rush past the guards to get inside where Big Boss orders Snake to enter the door on his left. That door opens into a room with a massive pitfall trap in it. Now it's starting to seem like Big Boss might not know what he's talking about. So we have to ignore our commanding officer again and blow up a wall to get into an elevator which will take Snake down to a bunker 100 floors deep. We can't get to Metal Gear just yet, but Jennifer says that we can find an oxygen tank down here to traverse that waterway and find another way to get into Building 3. With the tank in hand, Snake has to run past all the scorpions, back to Building 2, and swim through the deep water into a new part of the building. After getting past another electric floor, Schneider calls, having finally found out who the leader of Outer Heaven is. But before we can tell Snake, someone seems to get him. Well, I'm sure he'll be fine, but in the next room is Dirty Duck, another boss who's now surrounded himself with POWs to try to stop you from shooting him. To make matters worse, Jennifer calls to tell us that her brother is among the POWs, and if we kill him, she's done helping us. Dirty Duck throws boomerangs, but if you line it up just right, you can hit him while avoiding the refugees. Duck drops card 8 and we can free the POWs. The one that was Jen's brother tells us that when we make our escape, we need to climb the ladder on the left. Okay, bro, whatever that means. Anyway, card 8 is what we needed to get into the depths of Building 3, so let's go all the way back through the desert. I mean, this is now like 80 kilometers that Snake has walked. With card 8, we can free another POW, maybe Schneider, but I'm not entirely sure. But he tells us that the leader of Outer Heaven is none other than Big Boss. So that's why he tried to fuck us when we first arrived at Building 3. Anyway, the cameras down here shoot lasers, but as Snake gets closer to Metal Gear, Big Boss radios again and orders Snake to shut off his device, meaning shut off the device you're playing this on. I wonder if anybody actually did that back in the day. But Snake is not to be stopped, even when he has to run over an electric floor with no control panel to shut off, you just need to thug it out and eat a ration. Finally though, at the end is this terrible weapon, Metal Gear, a device that could destroy the world in nuclear fire at any moment. Lucky for Snake though, it's turned off, so all you need to worry about are the 2 laser cameras guarding it. They're actually super annoying to avoid, but all you need to do is place plastic explosives in the order of right, left, right, left, right, left, right, left, right. Got that? When Metal Gear gets destroyed, the self-destruct sequence for Outer Heaven, I think just the military bases, not like the entire country, gets triggered. Snake has exactly 30 seconds to escape, but you can extend that by smoking cigs. I guess it calms him down or something, I don't know. Blocking the way though is Big Boss himself. He confirms that he is the leader and founder of Outer Heaven, and says that the reason he sent the rookie Snake on this mission was to try to make it a failure intentionally, which would then give him more time to finish Metal Gear and then conquer the world. He doesn't actually say that last part, but you get the feeling that's what he meant for Metal Gear 2. Unlike some characters in the second game though, he can only take a few rockets to the face, so Snake manages to kill his former commander and escape via the left ladder just as the facility blows up behind him. He radios HQ to let them know about his success, but he's clearly shaken by what happened with Big Boss. The end credits scene revealed that Big Boss is not dead, and he swears revenge on Snake. Now that ending gets recontextualized later in the series, but for now all we know is the Big Boss is still out there somehow. And that was Metal Gear 1. It doesn't really have all that much of a story. Most of what you do get is handed down by POWs or people on your radio. But the second game is also the opposite. It has a crazy story, especially for 1990. So Metal Gear 2 actually has an opening that tells us a lot about what happened in between the 2 games. So it's the late 1990s and the world is embarking on an age of peace and stability. Relations between the Cold War superpowers have thawed, and regional conflicts are being resolved. The threat of nuclear war is now a thing of the past. But there are some who do not desire peace. An atmosphere of tension begins to build in the Middle East. A military junta comes to power in Zanzibar land, a small nation bordering on the USSR, China, and the Middle East. Zanzibar land attacks nuclear weapons disposal sites around the world, seizing those weapons that are still intact and becomes the world's only nuclear power, then beginning to invade its neighbors at will. After renouncing nukes forever, the world is once again threatened by the specter of nuclear war. Meanwhile, the world's oil supply, which was to last another 30 years, suddenly dries up. Without a safe alternative source of energy, the world faces a severe energy crisis. It's in these dire circumstances that Dr. Kyo Marv, a Czech biologist, develops Oilix, a microbe that can synthesize high-grade petroleum. With this discovery, global tensions are once again on the rise, but on his way to attend a scientific conference in America, Dr. Marv was kidnapped and taken to Zanzibar land. With both nuclear weapons and the secret of Oilix, Zanzibar land plans to achieve global military domination. Alright, there you go, that's the intro. Now what they don't tell you is that I'm pretty sure Snake left Foxhound after Metal Gear 1 due to constant nightmares over what happened with Big Boss and his betrayal. Somehow they managed to get him back for this mission, although of course he has a new CO. The game begins with Snake climbing his way onto a military base in Zanzibar land and then calling Campbell, his new commanding officer. Snake's mission is of course to infiltrate Zanzibar land and recover Dr. Marv. In this game, Snake has an enemy detector to see guards on different screens, which is needed because guards now will patrol across various screens. We can also use this sensor to find Dr. Marv, who will show up as a red dot on the screen. Campbell will also give us the frequencies for two other guys, Master Miller, Foxhound survival expert. Mostly he just gives you real life tips like don't drink too much soda while you play the game, but he'll help us with a puzzle later. He also gives us George Kasler's frequency, who's supposed to be like the military weapons expert for Foxhound, however he never answered my calls. The only time we'll talk to him is towards the end when he calls us. Alright, so let's get to it. The first order of business is to crawl under these fences and find our way into the Zanzibar building. Campbell says that we can't just use the front entrance though, and we'll need to get in through a vent. Right outside the vent is a truck containing a pistol. Yet again, Foxhound sent Snake in with absolutely nothing besides a pack of cigs. Anyway, once we get inside through the vent, Snake gets a call from Holly White, a journalist who infiltrated Zanzibar land and can help us out in our mission. We then need to get to an elevator to get to floor 2, and in this game they still serve as save points, however guards can and often do follow you into them. On floor 2 we have to walk across these metal grates which make noise unless you crawl, so Snake has to crawl his way into a side room where we can find card number 1. We'll use that on floor 3 to enter this lab area, which is first guarded by a movement sensor and then some more lasers. Unlike the first game where we could cheat the lasers, these ones alternate around so you have to smoke in order to see them. Many times they switched at just the perfect moment to catch me and cause a red alert. Past more lasers is a gas mask, which is very needed in this game as a lot of the time when you cause a red alert, they'll flood the floor you're on with poison gas. But with the gas mask in hand, we can find Dr. Marv in a room on the 3rd floor. I mean, mission accomplished, we can all go home, except... They pulled the fake doctor trick on Snake yet again. It's not Dr. Marv, it's a boss called Black Ninja in disguise. It's kind of a weird name because he looks more like a gray ninja to me, but despite being the first boss fight, I actually think this is one of the harder ones in this game. Ninja will teleport between being inside and outside this box depending on where you are, so you have to choose to be in or out yourself, and then try to fit in your own shots between his ninja stars. When you finally kill Ninja, he reveals that he's actually Schneider, the former Outer Heaven Resistance leader. Now how the fuck did he end up here? He tells Snake that after Snake destroyed Metal Gear and killed Big Boss, NATO bombed the fuck out of Outer Heaven, killing both enemy soldiers and most of the Resistance and their children. Schneider says that he saved them from the bombings and gave them all a new home, and the Snake doesn't realize what a good guy he is. The last thing Schneider tells Snake is where he can actually find Dr. Marv, as he says there's no bad blood between the two. He tells Snake to follow a guard with a green beret and he'll lead us right to where Marv is being held. Schneider then blows up, which is kinda just what happens when you kill bosses in this game. Schneider drops card 2, which we can use to find a mine detector elsewhere on the 3rd floor. Back on floor 2, we can use card 2 to find a silencer for the pistol so we can actually finally use it, and then head back to floor 1 to find that guard. Now this next part with the guard is probably one of the most infuriating parts of the game I've ever played. So basically you need to trail the green beret guard through the forest until he leads you to Marv's cell. If he either sees you or you accidentally leave the screen he's on, he goes all the way back to the beginning and you have to restart. That's not the only problem. The problem is this fucking guy takes the most roundabout route possible to Marv's cell. For one, he's constantly looking over his shoulder like he's constantly paranoid about being followed, where he'll literally walk in circles for like half the chase, only to reveal that Marv's cell was like straight ahead from where you enter the jungle. It's pretty stupid, but luckily we can kill his bitch ass once we locate the cell. Marv is not actually inside, however there's some weird code being tapped out from someone on the other side of the wall. Now if you really want to feel like a secret agent, you can whip out the game's manual and solve it there, or you can just use a walkthrough from the snakesoup.org. The tap code was actually a frequency which connects us with Dr. Madnar from the first game, who has once again been captured. Madnar says that despite them not even speaking the same language, he and Marv were friends back at the Prague Academy, which was in the Czech Republic, so it's a little weird that he doesn't speak the language. Madnar tells us that Marv was just moved from the tower building, which is a few kilometers north of here. Madnar also reveals the reason why he was captured. Zanzibar Land forced him to create another Metal Gear, this one called Metal Gear D. One that he says is even more powerful than the first. Well, I'm sure the first one would have been great had it actually been turned on when we fought it, but with this information, Snake finally realizes that it's Big Boss who's behind all of this yet again. Madnar confirms that and says the Big Boss's plan is to use Metal Gear and its nuke as well as Oilix to entirely take over the world. We can't save Madnar yet, but he connects us with a zoologist we can call who will tell us more about animals later. For now, we can head north from the jungle, which puts Snake in a desert covered in mines. In this game, if you equip the mine detection, you can crawl around and pick up the mines. As soon as he enters the desert though, Snake gets a call from a mystery man who only calls himself Snake's #1 fan. Anyway, we'll be back to the desert in a minute. For now, let's head back deeper into the jungle where Snake comes across a swamp. There's this orphan kid standing there who says that he's seen trucks crossing the swamp even though everyone says it's impassable. What that means for Snake is that he has this very small and completely invisible hidden path through the swamp where I guess they set up an underwater bridge or something. I can't even imagine doing this part without just looking up a map because it's literally just trial and error. If you don't get out of the water quick enough, you end up sinking in and dying. But anyway, the hidden path takes Snake to a hidden building in the swamp where he's ambushed by another boss. He calls himself Running Man, and he's supposedly the fastest mercenary alive, even while wearing a gas mask. He floods the room with nerve gas and challenges Snake to catch him before he suffocates due to the gas. Running Man is actually fast as fuck and you can't catch him no matter how hard you try. What you have to do is use those mines we just collected at a choke point and force Running Man's Dumbass to repeatedly run over them until he dies and drops card 3. Elsewhere in the swamp building we can find 2 more orphan kids, one of which tells us where we can find some Stinger missiles back at Building 1. First though, we have to make our way back through the invisible swamp, then back to Building 1 where we can first find a red card. No, not like the thing they give kindergartners when they misbehave, a key card that combines cards 1, 2, 3 into one single card. So unlike the first game where when you found a locked door you had to select between like 9 different cards to find out which was the right one, this one you can combine them. With the red card we can find those missiles that kid mentioned and head back to the jungle, then to the desert. Past all the mines are some guards and Holly tells us that Zanzibar Land has some singing sand imported from Okinawa, Japan. Singing sand is actually real, but as far as I can tell it doesn't make a noise when you walk on it like this stuff does. Anyway, past the special sand we get a rematch with Hind D, except this time it's not a weird plane/helicopter hybrid, it's just a helicopter, and this time it actually takes off. Hind D will melt Snake with just a couple shots, so what you have to do is hide in these vents as it passes over you, then hop out and equip the Stinger missiles. The way these work is you pick a point on your map to target and launch the missile, and then it takes a couple seconds to actually hit. So this fight is basically hide in a vent, hop out and fire a missile at a place in Hind D's path at just the perfect time to hit it, then crawl back into your vent. We only have 6 missiles and we need to do that 4 times, so if you fuck it up you can either do the responsible thing and go back to Building 1 to get some more, or just let Hind D kill you, which is way quicker. But once Hind D #2 goes down, it's a clear shot to the tower building where Marv is supposed to be. In a truck outside the building, Snake can find another cardboard box, which in this game you can use to hop on conveyor belts and get inside certain buildings undetected, and that's exactly how we get into the tower building. Once we do, Holly radios to tell Snake that she's been captured and put into a cell somewhere in the tower building. As you might expect by the name, the tower building is very tall, but the inside is also one giant spiral with 3 separate elevators throughout. The first elevator we need to use is the second one in the spiral, and it takes Snake to the basement, which is also kind of a sewer. Holly mentioned that she could hear an elevator and the sound of running water from her cell, so we'll likely find her down here, as well as all the orphans mentioning a blonde lady. In this basement we first find some plastic explosives, a kid who says the one-eyed man told her to watch out for men wearing green, and then Holly behind a hidden wall. Snake immediately begins spitting some game when they first meet, but Holly tells him that Marv used a carrier pigeon to send her some kind of message. She was captured before being able to grab the pigeon. Holly says the pigeon should be on the roof and gives Snake card #4 before leaving. Back on tower building floor we'll need to get to the elevator #1, which takes Snake to the 10th floor, which is extremely weird. I say that because there's a bunch of orphans on this floor who are like trapped in blocked off corridors. I can only assume they have their own way in and out because the only way Snake can do it is by blowing up walls. But be careful not to blow up any orphans because if you do, they cause Snake psychic damage. One of these kids tells us he saw some green pineapples in a room nearby, which turned out to be grenades. And you know, as it turns out, leaving a bunch of little kids unattended on a military base is probably not a good idea. We need to have a talk with Big Boss about that when we meet him. The pineapples will be useful in a minute, but for now we need to go back to floor 1 and all the way back through the spiral to elevator #3. It takes Snake all the way to the 30th floor, where another boss has set up an ambush for him. This is Red Blaster, which is another weird name because he's wearing green, not red. But Red Blaster basically crawls around on the roof throwing grenades at Snake, and the only way to damage him is to return the favor. There's these weird white string barriers set up that you can easily run through and break, but I always thought it was easier to just stay in the starting area. This fight is super easy because Snake's grenades have a way bigger AoE than Blaster's, so you only have to throw them in his general direction and it'll damage him. With Blaster dead, Snake gets out into these external walkways that take him higher in the building. At the top of the walkways, it seems like a dead end until Holly calls and says that they painted over the door in an attempt to cover it up. I mean, great job, guys. That door opens onto the roof and we can see that carrier pigeon flying around up here. Snake decides to give that zoologist a call and he says that we might be able to lure the pigeon to us with beans or potatoes. And this fucking guy's always eating, by the way, like every time you call him he's just ordered some new kind of food. Anyway, lucky for us, B2 rations have potatoes in it, so Snake is able to get the pigeon to eat long enough to grab the message from its leg. The message says, "Help. Wis, Ohio, Keo Marv" on it, and whatever the fuck that means. Snake decides to call Campbell, whose only idea are the US states Wisconsin and Ohio, but even he says that's unlikely as Marv has never even been to the US. Snake calls Master Miller next, who says that it's a code for some kind of digital number, but he leaves Snake to work it out himself, until you call him again and Miller finally just says that it's a frequency, 140.51. That works and Snake finally gets in touch with Marv, but he doesn't speak English, only Czech. Snake doesn't understand, but I'll translate what he said anyway. In Czech he says, "It's Marv, what should I do? We just want peace, we were only doing our homework. I sure hope you save me, dear friend." Now I'm sure homework there is a mistranslation by Google, but you get the idea. Anyway, Snake doesn't have Google Translate, so he calls Madnar to get his opinion. Madnar says that there's an undercover STB agent somewhere on the base. STB is basically the Czech security department. Her name is Gustava, and Madnar tells us she disguised herself as a guard. Madnar suggests a pretty creepy way of finding her, but we don't really have any better options. He says that there are no female guards in Zanzibar land, so if we see one go into the women's bathroom, we know it's her and can ambush her in there. In order to do that, though, we're going to need to get back to Building 1. So back through the spiral and the desert and the jungle until we finally get back to the Zanzibar building and head straight for the elevator. Taking the elevator up to floor 3 allows us to use card 4 to get to a new area where the guards love to flip off the lights if they catch you. Luckily we find a set of night vision goggles, which will be very important in a minute. We also get some gas grenades up here, which will be kind of important later. With that, we can go up to floor 4 and end up in this area with a shitload of fake guard mannequins, with a couple real guards hiding among them just for situations like this, I guess. Past that, we arrive at the cafeteria and then the floor's bathrooms. We can find a bucket in the men's bathroom that allows Snake to hide outside the women's. In this game, guards will sometimes shoot at you when you're in a cardboard box because they learn from their mistakes, but the bucket is somehow bulletproof, so we don't need to worry about that. A guard finally arrives and heads into the women's bathroom where Snake rushes in after her. Luckily, it was actually Gustava, even though it's still a little crazy to be ambushing her in the women's bathroom. She's surprisingly unfazed, though. Snake actually recognizes her as an Olympic figure skater, but Gustava doesn't want to talk about it. She gets on the radio and calls Marv, and they have another conversation and such, which I'll translate for you. "This is Gustava. Marv. Doctor, how do you feel?" "Thank you, I feel good, Gustava. You look very good." "Where are you, Doctor?" "There's a cleft to the north. They have a concentration camp there. I'm there. We will definitely save you. I am grateful. Thank you." Gustava tells Snake what they talked about, although she also adds a part about Marv being concerned about Dr. Madnar. I don't know if they meant for her to add that or they just thought nobody would translate the text, but Snake confirms that he's alright. Gustava says that they can use the elevator to get down to the sewers where she knows a way through. Now, why is there an elevator in the women's bathroom? Who the fuck knows? But Snake and Gustava travel together now through the sewers. There's these weird street cleaner type things, they insta-kill you if you touch them, but they're easy enough to avoid. In the sewers is another elevator which weirdly leads straight into Dr. Madnar's cell. Madnar says the elevator would only open from the inside, which is how they trapped him in here, but he gives Snake card 5 and the group of 3 get on their way back to the sewers. Card 5 unlocks a new passageway through the sewers, however Madnar has to take a piss halfway through, leaving Snake and Gustava alone. We finally get to learn how she went from Olympic gold medalist to special agent. Basically, she fell in love with an American named Frank and tried to get asylum to leave the USSR and immigrate to America. However, at the last moment her request was denied, leaving her stranded in Russia with the government now knowing that she attempted to leave. So she was banned from ice skating and pretty much any job in the public eye, which led her to join STB and be the person she is today. Very sad, but Madnar finishes up and rejoins the group as they find another elevator to take them out of the sewers. The elevator takes them up past Tower Building and eventually to this rickety bridge. Madnar crosses first as he reasons that he's old, so no harm, no foul if the bridge collapses, but it doesn't and he manages to cross. Gustava crosses next, but when she gets halfway across, something blows up the bridge, killing Gustava in the process. In her last moments, Gustava gives Snake card 6 as some kind of brooch which she says has some kind of other use, but she dies before telling Snake what that is. Madnar gets recaptured and we learn what blew up the bridge. It was the new Metal Gear D, but piloting the giant mech is none other than Grey Fox, the same agent Snake saved from Outer Heaven in the first game. Grey Fox tells Snake that he has one chance to turn around and give up on his mission. If he doesn't, then Fox will kill Snake. So both Schneider and Fox join the Big Boss and his Zanzibar land mission, and it seems like Snake is the outlier here. Well, Snake needs to find another way to get to the other side, which now luckily Holly provides. She said that we should be able to hang glide off the top of the tower building, but of course to do that we need to find a hang glider, which she says is all the way back in Building 1. You know how when modern games run low on budget they'll just reuse assets and enemies? Well, in old games they'll just make you backtrack and redo entire areas you already did, and I honestly don't know which I prefer. But with that being said, back in Building 1 we can trade out cards 4 through 6 for a blue card and then enter a locker room where the lockers literally are entire rooms. Past that is the sleeping quarters for the guards. The floor in here makes noise and there's a camera so you have to crawl under the beds. The room after that is where you really need those night vision goggles because the lights are off, and when you enter there's a light switch right there. However, the room is filled with sleeping guards who would wake up by you using that light switch. Pretty clever, but at the end of the room is a sauna which has a weird use. That brooch Gustavo gave us is some kind of weird memory material, where if it's exposed to either high heat or freezing cold, it'll turn into a new shape. In this case, it shapes itself into a key which can then be used to open a locker that has a cassette tape of the Zanzibar national anthem on it. You only have to avoid a few naked guards to get the brooch to fully shape up. The national anthem has a pretty funny use. It causes all guards to freeze in place and stand at attention so you can avoid getting detected by using it occasionally. Anyway, we still need to find a hang glider, which the first step in that is heading down to the basement of Building 1. Unlike the tower building, it's not a sewer, but it is a super dingy basement. Down here we can find an SMG, some RC missiles, and a bulletproof vest that halves the amount of damage you take from bullets. There's also a camouflage mat, which kind of acts like a portable vent you can hide in. Back to floor 1, the blue card unlocks a new area which gives Snake a hang glider, so now we just need to get back to tower building. So, past the jungle, desert, and spiral, Snake gets in the elevator which should take him to the 30th floor, except Grey Fox interrupts it. He tells Snake he sent an assassination team after him, and it turns out to be 4 guys calling themselves the Four Horsemen. Once upon a time they were the president's top guys, but now it seems they're too scared to let Snake even get close to them. This fight is super easy because the horsemen will always jump away before you can reach them, so you can keep only 2 of them on the floor at a time while the rest chill on the roof. They only travel in one set line through the elevator, though, so all you need to do is run at them, place a mine in their path, and then run away until they step on the mine. Do that until all 4 of them are dead, and the elevator goes back down to the first floor, so we'll have to find another way up, but the horsemen did drop us card number 7. Snake goes to the 10th floor and then back out on those external platforms, except this time we have to climb 10 stories all while being chased by guards. It goes on for way too long, but on the 20th floor we can find a balcony the Snake can use to jump off. His number 1 fan calls to tell him that he has to jump off at just the right moment when the wind is blowing north rather than south. I'm pretty sure the way you're supposed to tell this is by throwing gas grenades, however the direction never actually changed for me, so I just went for it both times. Either way, Snake needs to smoke a cig to calm himself and then jump off where the hang glider takes him over the destroyed bridge and 1 step closer to Dr. Marv. Snake steps out into this tall grass field only to be ambushed by our next boss, Jungle Evil, a name that actually goes kinda hard in my opinion. Jungle Evil is a boss fight that seems way harder than it actually is. He calls himself the Master of Ambush, just so all he does during the fight is hide in the grass till he pops out and sprays bullets at you. The problem is that you can just fuck him by hiding behind these crates and throwing grenades. Jungle Evil will pop up to shoot at you, and you can just run around the other side of the crate to throw grenades at him until he dies. Pretty easy. He drops card 8 upon death, which we can use to continue. In a facility past Jungle Evil, we can find 2 eggs protected by lasers. Snake can nurture and care for them for a little while until they hatch. Now if you're stupid like me, here's how the next part of this video game goes for you. First, you sneak onto a truck looking for loot, only for that truck to drive you all the way back to tower building. Well, that's no problem, we can just climb back to the balcony and jump off again. Except halfway up you realize that one of those eggs has hatched into a baby snake, which has now eaten almost all of your rations. So you throw out the snake, and then climb 10 stories again. Upon climbing 10 stories again and reaching the balcony, you realize that you don't actually have the hang glider anymore, so how the fuck are you supposed to get back? Well, it's simple, you just hop in a different truck which drives you all the way back. So like 30 minutes later, we're back at Building 3 where we realize that the other egg is hatched into an owl. Snake decided to call the zoologist again to get some owl care tips when he tells Snake it's a Zanzibar wood owl. The people of Zanzibar land actually use them to tell when it's nighttime rather than just like using the sun or whatever. One of the orphans tells us that the guards let down this electric gate at night, so it's pretty easy what we have to do. That walkthrough I keep mentioning from Snake's suit puts this in the funniest way possible. The owl will eventually hoot, making the guard think it's evening because he's a simpleton, and turn off the electric fence. Anyway, inside the compound is an elevator that takes Snake down to the basement where he gets another call from his fanboy. He tells us that the Snake is about to get ambushed by a mercenary called Nightfright who's wearing a suit that makes him entirely invisible. Our fan tells us to use our ears, but there's a much easier way to tell where Nightfright is, as when he starts shooting it's pretty clear where the source of the bullets was. Combine that with the insane radius of grenades and he's pretty easy to take down. A door opens for Snake, but the way is blocked by pools of sulfuric acid. All you need to do to get past them though is dump a ration containing chocolate into them, which is surprisingly a real thing. The door beyond them is locked behind card 9, which our fan tells us Jungle Evil was supposed to have. He had both cards 8 and 9, but only dropped 8 when killed. That's because he hid card 9 in a random spot in the field, but you actually can't grab it until your fan tells you that he hid it, which is a little annoying. But finally, with card 9 in hand, Snake opens the door and finds Madnar standing over Dr. Marv's lifeless body. He says that Marv's heart gave out on him after the torture, but Snake notices bruises on his neck. Madnar says that Marv hid the recipe for Orlix inside an MSX cartridge made by the company Konami, so I guess Metal Gear is canon within Metal Gear. Just then, Snake gets a call from Holly who tells him that Madnar is a traitor and that he killed Marv, obviously. Madnar was apparently rejected by the American scientific community who didn't see much use for his giant nuclear robots. It makes sense when you consider that in Metal Gear the world has all but gotten rid of nukes at this point in time. Madnar was the one who got Marv captured by working with Zanzibar Land, and Madnar confirms all of this. He says that they rejected his whole Metal Gear thing and favored the Strategic Defense Initiative, which was a real thing supposed to protect against nuclear attacks with space lasers. He also says NEDW, which I couldn't find anything on, and brain bombs, which I couldn't really find anything on either, but you can imagine how the US government would be interested in something like that. The last thing Madnar reveals is that while he was taking his piss break in the sewers, he was the one who radioed Grey Fox and got Gustava killed. Madnar then begins choking out Snake, and surprisingly, the super athlete special agent can't overpower an elderly scientist, so what you have to do is literally launch Stinger or RC missiles at him until he lets you go. And let me tell you, man, Madnar can take more missiles than fucking Big Boss from the first game. He's a menace, and the craziest part is that 7 missiles doesn't even kill him, just knock him out for a moment. And fucking Madnar, man, he was holding out on us in the first game. But Madnar did reveal that the key to Marv's locker, which holds the Oilix recipe, is locked via Gustava's brooch. Campbell tells us to try freezing it this time, so let's make our way all the way back to Building 1, and then back to the cafeteria where there's a walk-in freezer. Just like the sauna, it shapes the brooch into a key. While we're here, we can also upgrade cards 7 through 9 into a green card, and then head all the way back to Building 3 and then back to the basement where we fought Madnar. Opening up the locker reveals it to be more of a secret room, but there's an opening in the bottom, which is where Marv must have stashed the MSX cartridge. Unfortunately, the room is swarming with mice. No, actually, poisonous Zanzibar land hamsters according to the zoologist, and one touch from them would kill you. He said they love cheese though, so Snake can equip a ration with cheese to lure them out and kill them. With the hamsters gone, Snake finds the MSX cartridge and crawls out of the locker to find Madnar has awoken. In his last moments, he decides to tell Snake how to kill Metal Gear 2 for his daughter, which remember Snake saved in the first game. Now I know Madnar said this Metal Gear is better than the other one, but I don't know, man, that one took a sequence of 16 precisely placed C4 bombs to destroy. This one just has a general weakness to grenades on its feet. Well, good thing he told us that, because Grey Fox triggers a pitfall directly under Snake that drops him to a hangar where Fox is waiting with Metal Gear D. Now I'll warn you, if you're sensitive to flashing lights, you should probably not watch this next part, because I'm not, and it damn near gave me a seizure. Anyway, Fox emerges from the pitch black in Metal Gear D, the successor to the original, and this fight really isn't too hard. If Metal Gear even touches you, then you're dead, but as long as you stick to the sides of the arena, he can't. So basically, just stick to the sides of the arena, dodging bullets and missiles until Snake finally manages to kill the second Metal Gear. Grey Fox gets out at the last moment before Metal Gear explodes, lighting Snake on fire. Campbell calls to tell Snake to basically strip naked by dropping all his weapons and items on the ground. Now completely unarmed, Snake comes face to face with Grey Fox in a room with a ring of mines surrounding the center. Finally, George Kasler calls and tells Snake a little about Grey Fox. First of all, his real name is Frank Yeager. About 10 years ago, he was involved with an Olympic skater from Russia named Gustava. Kasler doesn't understand the significance of what he just told us, but what he does say is that if Snake beats Fox, he'll tell everyone that Snake is the best mercenary in the game. So we finally have to fight Grey Fox, and it's just a good old fist fight. It's actually also very easy. Anytime you punch Fox, he runs away, so as long as you can stay on top of it, Fox shouldn't hit you very many times. Once Fox goes down, he tells Snake why he allied with Big Boss after Outer Heaven. Big Boss saved his life twice, once when he was a kid after the Vietnam War, then again when he was a merc in Mozambique and had his ears and nose cut off. I mean, it seems like they're still present to me, but Fox believes in Big Boss philosophy, which we'll learn more about in a minute, but to sum up what Fox says, war is in their blood and they can't live without it, and Big Boss always provides war. Snake swears to never end up stuck in an endless war like Fox, who says, "Don't let your fans down," revealing that he was the mysterious #1 fan on the radio. I guess Fox either wanted to pay Snake back for saving him back in Outer Heaven, or really just wanted an excuse to help take down Big Boss without turning himself. But with that, Grey Fox dies, dropping the Oilix recipe, and Snake hears a familiar voice calling him further into the facility. It's Big Boss himself, having somehow survived the whole Outer Heaven thing. I wish this game had voice acting so I could just play this scene out, because the dialogue is really good, but I guess I'll just read out what they say. "Snake, welcome to Zanzibar land. I knew you'd come back to me. I came to get rid of the nightmares I've been having for the past 3 years. The nightmares, they never go away, Snake. Once you've been on the battlefield, tasted the exhilaration, the tension, it all becomes a part of you. Once you've awakened the warrior within, it never sleeps again. You crave ever bigger tensions, ever bigger thrills. As a mercenary, I think you would have realized that by now. You care nothing for power, or money, or even sex. The only thing that satisfies your cravings is war. All I've done is give you a place for it. I've given you a reason to live. I never would have made you for such a hypocrite, Big Boss. You saw those children, didn't you? Everyone is a victim of a war somewhere in the world, and they'll make fine soldiers in the next one. Start a war, fan its flames, crave victims, then save them, train them, and feed them back onto the battlefield. It's a perfectly logical system. In this world of ours, conflict never ends, and neither does our purpose, our reason for being. So there's plenty of job opportunities, is that what you're trying to say? On the battlefield, you and I are valuable commodities. Back home, we're nothing but dead weight. If we're lucky, we might get the attention of some 2-bit journalist from a cheap tabloid. You and I are doomed to remain here until we die like dogs on the battlefield. I've only got one fight left, to free myself from your grip, to rid myself of these nightmares. Big Boss, I will defeat you. It doesn't matter who wins here. Our fight will continue. The loser will be liberated from the battlefield and the winner will remain. And the survivor will live out the rest of his days as a soldier. It doesn't have to be that way. I'm not like you. I love life. Very well, Snake. I'll release you from your suffering. As your former commander, I'll do you one last favor, and put you out of your misery. I don't need any more favors from you. Really? And just how do you expect to beat me in your condition, with no weapon? Never give up. Fight until the end. Always believe you'll succeed, even when the odds are against you. Those are your words. Even I make mistakes from time to time. Snake, this will be our final battle. Let's end this once and for all. And with that, we have to fight Big Boss, except like he said, Snake is completely unarmed. This part is a big throwback to the first game because basically what you have to do is run around and collect 6 separate keycards to open a shitload of doors until Snake can finally find a spray can and a lighter, making a makeshift flamethrower. Once the flamethrower is made, fighting Big Boss comes down to basically playing Ring Around the Rosie with him because our flame attacks go through obstacles while his bullets don't. With enough damage though, Snake watches Big Boss burn to death, all the while swearing that this isn't over and that he'll get his revenge. With Big Boss dead, Snake is ambushed by a guard who actually turns out to be Holly in disguise. She gives him a gun and the two have to run to the exit, but the game isn't done fucking with you just yet, as there are multiple pitfall traps, including one at the very end. But Snake ends up calling his helicopter pilot to come pick them up, forcing him and Holly to flee from a shitload of guards till the chopper finally arrives and saves them, just in time for Christmas. The post-credit scene here has Snake, Holly, and Campbell booting up that MSX cartridge, with Snake saying that he doesn't plan on returning to Foxhound full-time, as he's now a free man. Snake ends up pulling a Batman and disappearing on the other two, bringing us to the end of Metal Gear 2. A pretty impressive game when you consider that it came out in 1990, but with that being said, I want to thank you so much for watching. The next game in the series will be Metal Gear Solid, which is a little weird because this one was called Metal Gear Solid Snake. It will be even weirder when they release Metal Gear Solid Snake Eater.